Hello, I'm Anthony Finkelstein and I'm the President of City University of London. I run the university. I guess that's the simplest way to say it. I'm the Chief Executive of the institution. I was a terribly geeky child and I was interested in almost everything. And the more obscure the fact, the more it interested me. I certainly did all the sort of things that geeky children do, taking things apart, making things. My mother, who's a scientist, by the way, was very encouraging of all of that and very unafraid of letting me make a mess and break things. I made radios and robots out of toilet rolls and all the things that you do as a child. And I loved reading. After I was about 23, I'm not sure that I've changed that much. So yeah, absolutely. Find the boy and you'll find the man. My father worked here at City, was a university professor. So that model and that life seemed quite close then. And I've always been very curious about stuff, never felt that I quite had the answers I wanted. And so the trajectory to this point seems fairly obvious. That always seemed to me to be the sort of thing that I would want to do. The opportunity to apply what I knew about computing and engineering and technology to a really important problem, the opportunity to contribute to society, the opportunity to look after the interests of the UK and democracy and security. So that was a fabulous opportunity for me in all sorts of ways. For a large part of my early career, the idea of entrepreneurial and engagement of the type that I subsequently have been very much involved in, it never occurred to me. But I think within universities there was a sort of beginning of a rising awareness that this was something possible. I'd been doing little bits and pieces. I'd done quite a lot of consultancy. I'd done some licensing of software that I'd developed. But I think the first real entrepreneurial engagement came out of some scientific and technical work that I was pursuing. So I went to UCL Business, the technology transfer organization, and worked with them to get a patent for the core idea that underpinned this technology. And then slowly after that, it's quite difficult for me really to sort of exactly untangle this. We thought, no, there really is quite an exciting digital opportunity that underpin this, and that what we should do is create a spin out. I don't think I could sort of label one moment. I can see in my head sort of times we spent in rooms scribbling on whiteboards. I couldn't tell you absolutely a moment when this definitely crystallized. But long and the short of it was that we created this startup with the support of UCL called SystemWire. There was myself, a student of mine, and a fellow academic with whom I'd worked very closely. It was obvious that we didn't have the collective commercial experience we needed. We asked for some advice from UCL Business, and they introduced us to a guy who subsequently then became the CEO of SystemWire. There was also another really important moment which had come about when a student walked in and he said, wow, that thing you've got there, that would be very useful for this problem we've got at the bank. He was working in an investment bank. That'd be very useful. We'd never thought about it in that context, and it was pretty much immediately clear that there were real opportunities there. But we also, it was apparent that none of us could sell for toffees, and that we just didn't have the network and contacts that we needed. We were always generating money, but it wasn't really going places. And our failures as salespeople were pretty apparent. We then, through this work, developed a relationship with some guys who really knew the finance business their tech wasn't great, whereas we had something with a real USP. And so we merged and we adopted the name on that the company became Message Automation. From that point, the company just kept on growing. There's a vision, I think, quite often about technological creativity. What happens is that research slowly progresses through different levels of readiness until it sort of becomes applied. But that's a very false picture of how things are happening. So what often happens is you develop some tech, you put it out there, it doesn't work. Or the circumstances are different to those you imagined, and therefore you have to go back and develop new ideas, different forms of creativity. So I always say to people, it's not a pipeline, it's a jacuzzi. Not only was it giving me real interest and was I learning a lot, but also there was a real opportunity to do tech creation and research and so on. And I learned also about business, and I learned about all sorts of things. Also, there was money. And that's quite nice, actually. From all points of view, it was a great experience. The second significant entrepreneurial engagement was with a startup called Satalia. And Satalia had a really interesting entrepreneurial journey. So we were looking particularly at verification of chip designs. But it turned out that the structure of that market was such that it was very difficult for us to successfully land an innovation. We were doing quite well providing services, building stuff for people. Services is not absolutely the best way to build a model for a startup because it only scales a certain way, whereas product companies scale much better. When I was working in government, I helped to set up something called the National Security Strategic Investment Fund. And the National Security Strategic Investment Fund is a strategic investor on behalf of the UK's national security and defence. What it does is makes Series A investments in startups who have technology that's relevant to defence and security, and uses the power of government as an early adopter to accelerate those companies, and also uses the power of the expertise in government to help companies grow rapidly. I think sometimes you might think, okay, well, somebody wants to do entrepreneurial things, so they should just go in that direction. But I actually think that this is something that helps you develop and will help you be better when you have to operate a large organization. The enjoyment and engagement and pleasure I get from creativity and from joint enterprise, that's something quite fundamental to me and who I am. Engaging in entrepreneurship and engaging in doing spin-outs and startups, I think has fundamentally changed me. And it's changed the way I work now in larger organizations. There are some really interesting new emergent models about how one might manage in large organizations which leverage the power of entrepreneurship and innovative thinking. 100% of nothing is nothing, I think is the core advice, which is you hold on to everything, you hold on to all the equity, you hold on to all the credit, you won't get anywhere. And feel free to share, because believe me, 4% of a really good exit is excellent. You'll be happy to share it with people who've made a really big difference. So share.